Thanks for joining us. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, a tense day between Israelis and Palestinians as it was marked by rocket attacks, airstrikes, and the killing of 2 Jewish women in the West Bank. The threat of violence hung over Jerusalem as tens of thousands of Muslim worshippers arrived in the city for Ramadan prayers. Here's CTV's Paul Workman with more.
2 sisters, one a teenager, the other in her 20s, were killed in the West Bank attack. Both were said to be British nationals, shot inside their car near a Jewish settlement where they lived. A third woman, their 45-year-old mother, was seriously wounded. We're talking about 2 women murdered at close range, said a spokesman for West Bank settlers. 2 victims killed in a despicable way. There was praise for the attack in the Gaza Strip during a day of protest marches and after a night of Israeli air raids, all linked to clashes earlier this week around the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, one of Islam's holiest sites. A Hamas spokesman praising what he called a heroic operation in the Jordan Valley. Israeli warplanes bombed targets overnight, both in Gaza and southern Lebanon, in response to a volley of rockets fired toward Israel, raising fears that a wider confrontation might be about to erupt. Israel said it was aiming at tunnels used for smuggling and weapons manufacturing sites. One of the missiles hit a taxi. If I was in the car, I would have died, said the owner. There is nothing here but homes and farmland. In Jerusalem, the day was mostly peaceful as more than 100,000 Muslims poured into the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. An Israeli police raid there earlier in the week ultimately led to the exchange of missiles and rockets overnight. There was no repeat of hostilities at the mosque today. Paul Workman, CTV News, London.
Applications are now closed for the new judicial seat in Fort Frances, and the local law association is looking forward to having a judge in the community, as according to the association, there hasn't been a provincial judge there for more than a decade. Lee Noonan has more.
The Rainy River District Law Association has long been pushing for a judge to be appointed in Fort Frances. They say there hasn't been a judge living in town since 2012, causing a number of negative impacts on the local justice system.
You know, sometimes it's just simple stuff like your judge needs to be able to return home before it gets dark, and therefore your court has to adjourn and your client's matter doesn't get reached that day on the docket or gets adjourned an entire month till the next available day. It shakes confidence in the administration of justice when people show up to court and don't feel like they're being heard, don't feel like everyone has really had time to absorb the material, and feel like they're being ushered out of the room too quickly.
Judson says he's optimistic that the appointment of a provincial judge locally will allow for a, quote, full-service justice system for the Rainy River District.
Well, I think by having a judge based in your court, you have someone presiding who becomes familiar with the community, understands the different areas of the region that they serve, understands, just things that go without saying sometimes about where stuff is located and, what the history of different communities, particularly local Indigenous communities, might be. And they get to sort of invest themselves into the local justice system and the fabric of the programs we're developing.
The separation of powers between government and courts complicated the process, says Judson, with Queen's Park controlling the purse strings, but courts determining where and when to appoint new judges. The pandemic, however, and the introduction of virtual court actually strengthened their case.
Before, when we'd sometimes get the argument, well, the Fort Frances court isn't busy enough to have a judge based there. Now we can say, well, if you base a judge here, they can fill gaps in other jurisdictions remotely because we have the technology to do that now.
Judson doesn't know when the new judge will be announced, but he hopes that whoever gets the job, they're ready to put down roots in Fort Frances. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The historic flooding in the Rainy Lake area last year couldn't have been prevented. That's according to an international commission charged with monitoring water levels in the area. According to the International Rainy Lake of the Woods Watershed Board, preventative measures would have made little difference in the wake of unprecedented rainfall. Computer simulations show that even in a best-case scenario, peak water levels on Rainy Lake would have only been about 4 centimeters lower and receded 2 days sooner, while Namakan Lake peak levels could have only been 1 centimeter lower and receded 1 day earlier. Canadian Chair Megan Garner says that while centimeters do matter, there is no way to have predicted the massive rainfall that ultimately led to the flood.
If we had done the most irresponsible thing in the spring, not knowing that it was going to rain and drain both lakes, that all they would have gotten for that huge risk is 1 to 4 centimeters difference, with the consequence that if it hadn't rained historically like it did, that there would have been detrimental effects to environment and low water levels all summer.
The committee will implement measures to more quickly adjust to changing water levels. Garner says there also needs to be more transparency and reliable communication within the public. St. Jude Elementary is opening a new culture room, offering a calm space for students to reflect and learn more about Indigenous traditions, customs, spirituality, and language. Elder Maria Escuega and a group of hand drummers were on site to help celebrate the grand opening this past week. Escuega led staff in a group song, the first of many planned for the new space. Parents and students we spoke with see real promise in the initiative and welcome the opportunity to bridge cultural gaps.
I was very honored to be asked to come and open this cultural room. It means a lot to me that the schools are doing this, and it's very important for our people and our children to be able to learn their language and to come home and have their children speak to them. So yes, it's amazing. They just amaze me.
It's very touching to my heart. I can get really emotional sometimes thinking about it because the language is one of the things that my family lost. It's a wonderful thing that all the schools seem to be doing these sort of initiatives and bringing the culture back into the learning. And then to hear my daughter drum and sing those words in our language is special for sure.
Well, I like this culture room. I like the flooring with the circle, and how I get to learn all about your new songs.
St. Jude's Culture Room is the 6th of its kind in Thunder Bay Catholic Board. The spring weather was perfect outside for the crowds of kids and parents who came out to the Slovak Legion today to meet the Easter Bunny and gather as many chocolates as they could for the 11th annual Hill City Kinsman Children's Easter Egg Hunt. Jessica Clement was there and has the details.
3, 2, 1, go!
This year's egg hunt was once again taking place at the Slovak Legion, but this time it was behind the building. Hundreds of families and friends had smiles on their faces as they attempted to grab as many chocolate-filled eggs as possible. And there was enough for everyone as volunteers filled more than 10,000 colorful eggs with sweet treats. We asked some kids why they wanted to come out.
That'd be like a fun thing to do with their families and friends. And then there's another Easter at home, so just more Easter.
I want chocolate.
Because chocolate. It's a really fun activity to do. My favorite thing is probably getting chocolate. I got to do it with Brooklyn, because she's my best friend, and Cheyenne too. And I got to spend time with them, so it's just like a fun thing to do, you know?
Candy wasn't the only thing up for grabs, however. There are also dozens of special eggs lying around, with vouchers for other prizes, including a new bike. And with so much at stake, many kids had to come up with strategies to make the most of their morning.
Fall on the floor and just put them like this, and then you put it in your basket and then find another one, a pile.
I just ran and picked up all the eggs. I even have snow in my basket from how hard I picked it up. I don't know.
I made a pile, and then I just went for one category, and then the edges where people weren't, and then yeah.
My strategy was aim for the back and just like hoard eggs.
Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Hill City Kinsman Vice President Tony Scamboluri says the event is always fun for everyone involved, including the volunteers.
Well, that's usually our goal, is to keep everybody happy. I mean, we do a lot for the community with a lot of things that we do. And this is one of the things where we just give. You know, we're not looking for anything else. We're just trying to give, and we do it for the people that need it around here, you know, as much as we can to give away with the chocolates and the prizes. Keeps a smile on everybody's face. That makes us happy all year round.
The joy on everyone's faces proved the egg hunt was a huge success, and Scamboluri says he hopes they'll be able to do it again next year. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
We're now joined by sports anchor Mike Lang. If you weren't out hunting for Easter eggs, you were probably inside for round 2 of the Masters.
Yeah, Mitch, it's your favorite sport, golf,
It
right?
is.
We'll have,
Yes.
unfortunately, the weather did delay round 2 action on Friday, but we'll still catch up with all the action from round 2 coming right up.